Welcome to NextGear's Mod Series. Today, I'll be covering my impressions and findings of the CS Flash and CS Tune that you can get for your G Series M2, M3, or M4. Now, these two mods are easily the best bang for your buck that I've seen, and in my opinion resolve many of the issues I had with the car originally, and make it a near perfect track machine right from the factory. Now, all of these things are using BMW maps and coding, which should also give you a bit more peace of mind in regards to the reliability of these changes. This is why, even though I hadn't really planned to tune or mod the M3 anytime soon, I was intrigued and ultimately swayed to make this change, and I'm so glad I did. Now, I'll quickly cover the process of flashing the car for anyone interested, and then go into my results and findings on each of these changes. First, the flashing process. If you are familiar with the BMW eSys system, you can just connect to your car with a laptop and make the changes yourself on the fly. But for the vast majority of us, we will want to reach out to a coder with good reviews to remotely code your car. Now, this can sound daunting for some, but it's really a rather simple process of booking an appointment and ordering an OBD2 to Ethernet cable for $10 to $20 off Amazon. Now, on your appointment day, you plug your laptop into your car by way of this cable that you've purchased, and then allow your coder remote access to your laptop to facilitate the coding of the car. This process only takes about 15 minutes. There are two well-known coders in the community that I have used the services of and had great results, as have hundreds of others. I will put their contact information in the description of this video for anyone wanting to go through with this service. Now, onto the results. First, let's talk about the CS Flash. Now, this flash does several things, and I will go over each individually. The item I think is most important from this is the steering flash. One of the biggest complaints I had with the M3 when I first got it was the dead zone in the middle of the steering wheel when you start to turn. I am so happy to say that the feeling is fixed in both the comfort and sport modes, and the steering has a much more direct feel that you want at the track. Now, before the tune, I found comfort mode to be the best on the track, but after this change, I'm thinking I like sport mode now, but it's a close decision, and both are so much better than the way it was before. This change alone makes this flash worth it. Now, people with the new LCI models, I hear, already had part of this dead feeling fixed, so you may not notice as big of a change as I did if you're on a G Series LCI model. Next, the suspension flash. Now, this definitely made the ride more harsh in Sport and Sport Plus modes, but it was a welcome change on the track in regards to stability in both of these modes. Now, around town, you should still use Comfort mode, but note that it does feel a little harsher of a ride than Comfort did before, so keep that in mind. Now, the differential part of this flash helps improve launching and stability around corners. I wasn't able to do a like-for-like comparison, as this was the first time I was at Gingerman with the M3, but it felt substantially more stable than it did at Blackhawk several weeks before. Now, the transmission is also flashed, and shifts in the first transmission level aren't really much changed, but levels 2 and 3 now have significantly increased force and quickness on the shifts. Now, the difference in time it takes to change gears is probably negligible. It was already extremely quick, but you definitely feel the shifts more now in the seat. Now, lastly, the DSC, or Dynamic Stability Control, is updated to the CS Flash as well. While this didn't appeal to me much at first, as I don't really use this feature on the track and I turn off DSC, I realized that I do use M Dynamic Mode at the track, which basically turns off traction control and DSC unless I get into a situation when it's needed, and then it intervenes. Now, traction control can really eat up the brakes in these cars at the track, so it's been advised that I turn it off entirely. That being said, I'm not comfortable enough yet at the track to turn it off entirely, so this flash increased the slip that is allowed before it intervenes, so I'm able to hopefully get the best of both worlds while keeping MDM and therefore a bit of DSC active in emergencies, but being able to really get on it without having to worry much about traction control not being there to save me if indeed it needs to in an emergency. Looking forward to seeing if this allows me to keep MDM on in the future without the risk of wearing out my brakes. Now, along with the CS Flash, most also choose to get the ASD changed to CS or removed entirely as well. Now, the ASD is that engine sound that is piped through the speakers when you're in the car. Now, with the CS Tune, that noise is substantially reduced, but if you want it entirely removed, that's of course an option as well. I also got the anti-dazzle light coated, which was a really cool feature. The laser headlights of this car are incredible, and now with this coating, you get to utilize this amazing light they put out so much more often. Now let's move on to the CS Tune. Now, this tune has only been out for a few weeks now, and is unique in regards to tunes, as instead of being made by an aftermarket tuner, It's the tune that is on the M2 CS, the one that just set the lap record at the Nürburgring for compact cars. Now, for some reason, BMW did not encrypt it like they normally do, and this allowed people around the world to start flashing this onto their own G-Series M2s, M3s, and M4s without restriction. Now, the tune does several things. First, it boosts the power you currently have to a quoted 530 horsepower and 480 torque. But as usual, these numbers appear to be extremely underrated. A recent dyno of this tune produced 558 horsepower and 528 torque on a stock car to the wheels, which on his car was a boost of over 60 horsepower and torque. Now keep in mind, if you are on an LCI model of the car, you are already going to have a boosted horsepower number, so while you may see a little benefit from the curve and torque, it's doubtful you will see anywhere near this much in gains. Unfortunately, this power increase cannot be put onto manual versions of the G series, so I'm sorry to say this is for all-wheel drive versions only. Now, there are additional benefits as well from this tune. First, it moves the top speed limiter to 186 miles per hour from 155. The startup sound is substantially louder, and it starts with more of a growl now, and the burbles in Sport Mode Plus have changed substantially. Now, instead of rare booming pops, it gives more consistent burbles in short succession. Which one of these two you prefer will be a personal preference, but there is definitely a change to the burbles. Now, idle is also increased from 600 to 900, which makes a huge difference in regards to driving around town and in parking lots. In my opinion, this has made the car much more controllable in these low-speed situations. Throttle response is also substantially increased in all modes, which is significantly reflected in quarter-mile times. Speaking of, let's get into those quarter-mile times now. Now, up until now, the fastest valid times I've been able to get on this car with Draggy were in early April with perfect conditions in the low 60s and no humidity. At that time, I got a 3.16 0 to 60 and an 11.24 at almost 122 miles per hour quarter mile. Now, this time of year, it's unfortunately much worse conditions, and my car now has several track days in the tires since that fastest run. So I needed to set a baseline right before the tune to make sure I knew where I was at this point. Now, in 80-degree temps with 80% humidity, I ran back-to-back runs, and both were within 1/100th of each other, achieving a 0 to 60 of 3.32 and a quarter mile of 11.33 at 121.55 miles per hour. Now, the tune was done, and I headed right back out for consecutive runs. This time, they were within 3/100ths of each other, talk about consistency, and I got a 3.31 0 to 60 and an 11.17 at 124.9 miles per hour quarter mile, which is a new personal best, but of course in these bad conditions. I went ahead and waited a few days for better conditions, and last night at 71 degrees with 60% humidity, I ran a 2.94 0 to 60 and a 10.95 quarter mile at 126.22. Now, with newer and better tires and better conditions, there is definitely another 1/10 or 2 in there. I also want to point out another substantial change, which is the speed it gains boost compared to before, without brake boosting. Now, before, when I would simply go from the brake to the gas with no brake boosting, it would get me a 4.39 0 to 60 and a 12.2 quarter mile. However, after the tune, that same process nets a 0 to 60 of under 4 seconds at 3.95 and a quarter mile time of 11.6. So even without using any form of launch control, it's now a mid-11-second car. I was not expecting that. You can get all of this done for about $350, which has to be the bargain of the century. Now, if you're on the fence about getting the CS Flash or the CS Tune, I hope this video helped you see what's involved, what it can do, and help make up your mind on what you would like to do. I'll be at Autobahn's 3-track configurations next weekend, and I'm excited to try out this CS Tune on the track for the first time. I'll be sure to have videos covering each day of how it did. Thanks so much for watching, everyone. We'll see you next time.